Have you noticed how narcissists love to rule on holidays and birthdays? In this episode, Tara and I delve into why we think that happens, along with sharing some of our experiences. And the self-help tip is about the importance of creating a self-care boundary to protect yourself better around these important dates. By the way, we have a newsletter we'd love to share with you. Please sign up for it at breakingfreewithkerryandtara.substat.com.
Growing up with a narcissistic parent, I grew to dread holidays, anniversaries, celebrations. It was always a shit show. It always was somehow drama. My narcissist, who was my mother, tended to always want the attention on herself. And it didn't really matter if it was good or bad attention. It just mattered that the intention was on her. So if it was, I remember Father's Day, my mother would throw some kind of fit and my dad would be off crying and my mom would be like pleased with herself. And that was an ongoing thing. And when I then met my other narcissists who I had romantic relationships, I grow to dread that. My birthday, for example, I was born on Thanksgiving, and every 6 or 7 years it's on Thanksgiving again. So that's double whammy. You have this family holiday plus my birthday. And I remember specifically that the narcissist that I had a very long romantic relationship with would specifically do things that were upsetting around my birthday or on my birthday or on Thanksgiving. You know, he would have a fight with someone or not get me a gift, or it was always something. So I grew to really hate anything that wasn't specifically relegated to the narcissist. If it wasn't their birthday, if it wasn't a day celebrating them, it was generally not going to be fun.
Did they also ruin their birthdays and the holidays that were important to them? Did you see them sabotage that too?
They often did, and it was usually some kind of attack, like something wasn't done to their expectations, or they didn't like the gift, or, you know, somebody wasn't acting right. You're right. It didn't matter what kind of attention. It absolutely didn't. They felt entitled to be the center of attention. And it just mattered that attention was on them, whether it was good or bad. But primarily the narcissists in my life, I've seen that attention primarily be bad and negative.
That's fascinating. The narcissist that I met for that second relationship, he told me right up front that he hated his birthday and he hated Christmas, and just to get that out of the way, just to expect that this was not going to go well, and it was going to be a really loaded holiday. And of course, my, good nature, I thought I could win him over, and I could throw him the best birthday, and I could really like show up for Christmas, and we would do it over and heal this wound in him. But yeah, he told me that too. It's interesting. I grew up in a household with parents who weren't super healthy either. Holidays was sort of it was mixed. I mean, it wasn't neither of my parents are dramatic or very arrogant people. So there wasn't any showboating going on. That wasn't an issue. It was more of the family tension because the extended family wasn't healthy. So it was more of this management of what's happening on the back end with the rest of them. Are we going to show up and do the right thing? Everyone would behave appropriate, but you'd hear after the fact that maybe you didn't talk to a certain person long enough, or you didn't go check out what this person might have had to say, or you failed it. I got a report card about how I handled the holidays. So it just made it feel really loaded, and I was sensitive and walking on eggshells. I just felt like there's some hidden script that I hadn't been privy to prior to that event. So holidays have never been, I found a way to sort of celebrate them for myself, to make them special for myself. But I can't say it. I don't have this big, wonderful experience with holidays with people, with families or groups, and certainly not with the last romantic partner. That narcissist was it was awful, just awful.
I can relate to that. My narcissistic ex also did not like his birthday, and I thought I was going to fix it. But then that became a huge source of resentment because I had done these lavish celebrations. There was one year I did a surprise birthday party where 40 plus people were all at this restaurant, came at came as this surprise. It was this amazing birthday party. And I never got anything like that reciprocated. Nothing. There wasn't any
Mm.
surprises for me. There weren't any, there was just always this uncomfortable tension that happened, some kind of fight, something. I remember one year, my first Mother's Day was very wonderful. My narcissistic ex made sure it was. And I remember saying to him, "Thank you so much. That was so nice." And he goes, "I really tried."
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was one of those things where it just ended up really pissing me off because I was like, "So you can try? Like, and you accomplished that, but like any other time? Like, no?" And that comes back to that
Mm.
choice. They can choose. A narcissist can choose how they treat you, and they choose to treat you poorly.
Yeah, because the reality is we're always choosing all the time. Every person, I mean, you're not telling the world how you feel today. What they
Mhm,
see is how you're showing up. We're all making a choice to put on a certain presentation or a certain persona. And it's interesting how they have this perception of the world that's very odd, and yet they know what's socially acceptable. So they can do what's socially acceptable despite this odd view of the world. So yes, they know our expectation. And here's the part that probably hurt me the deepest. I think that there's this desire to hurt us, that this ruining the holiday thing, ruining the birthday thing, to me feels there's a level of cruelty to it. It's
mhm,
like, I don't want you to have a good day. I don't want you to enjoy your family or your time because I want to be the sole source of your neediness, or your relationships needs to be only through me. But in addition, I don't want you to have those good things because I don't think I get what I want
mhm,
adequately enough. So, god dang, you're certainly not going to either. I'm going to make sure that you don't either. So, it's part of it to me feels like they're shitting on these days because they want to shit on
mhm,
us. And that's the part that I find super, super difficult, is that is just a foreign way of thinking about it. I don't relate to that at all. But yeah, that hurt deeply. That really hurt deeply. I was thinking about this, knowing we are going to talk about this today. And our first Christmas with the narcissist, he, I bought him a used iPad. Now remember, we're dating. We're not engaged. We're not married. We're dating. So I was trying to think what's appropriate level for a gift for a person that you have really serious feelings for. You see yourself as in love. You hope you marry this person, and I bought him a used iPad. That's what I thought was like, well, I won't go out and buy new, but I'll buy him
mhm,
a really nice used one. What he got me for Christmas that year is he took me into one of the big box tech stores and let me pull a few things off the carousel, like for my car, to put my phone on a mount in the car. That was his gift to me, was a
mm,
couple of these. I think it probably added up to under $100, maybe even like $50, $60. Whereas I bought a used iPad. And I hate to say this, but that was the best Christmas gift I got from him. From there, it was all downhill. I'm not even for
mhm,
sure some years he even got me anything. I think it probably was an afterthought.
mm. I was thinking earlier what you said about, that they sort of shit on our day, basically. I think a lot of it comes to that competitive nature, the
Mm,
jealousy and envy of the narcissist. I saw that a lot with my own mother, who tended to shit on Father's Day or my father's birthday and things like that. And it seemed so very intentional and very rageful. My mother primarily raised my sister and I by herself. My dad traveled a lot for work while I was growing up, and she was very angry that she was not appreciated more for her role as a single mom, basically like a single mom. But my sister and I didn't feel much about we didn't really appreciate or value her much because she really wasn't very kind. And she really wasn't, we she didn't keep us in a clean home. She was a hoarder. She was very angry. We didn't have the level of we very much seemed to favor our father, and that's because he was like a welcome respite from how angry and awful our mother was growing up with her. Um, but I could see that level of competition of like, it's not okay to celebrate him. You have, like, this day is going to be my day. And then when it is my day, it has to meet these unreasonable, crazy expectations that I haven't really earned, that grandiose sense of self.
Mhm, mhm. So what I'm hearing, and that's a really fascinating point you're bringing up, is that you're saying maybe they target those days as a way to bring you down because it's where they work out all their anger and all their
Mhm.
resentment and and it's a revenge. The part of it may be an effort to revenge. I'm gonna get you back for the way that you don't show up for me. I'm really not gonna show up for you.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
And I
think you're
think
right.
the
I
and
do
I
think you're
think
right.
the thing you mentioned about not show up for me, I think that's part of a delusion, like,
Yeah.
the expectation around showing up is so different than what you or I might do for one another. Like, having boundaries might be considered not showing up, even though boundaries healthy relationship, but you have boundaries, that's not okay, you know?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
didn't love me or show you loved me.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, because it's that's back to what I was said before about delusional. They have this world construct that's strange. The construct is that you're supposed to not only mind read, to know that these things are significant and to know how they want to have you show up and show that you care, which we already
Mhm.
talked about. The bar is getting set really high, but they also then have all these things that they have been holding against you. I think a lot of them are grudge holders. So they've been holding these grudges against you, and then they decide to work it out on the most important day because they want you to hurt, because in their minds, the way that you fail to show up for them is that big of an injury. To you, it may just be you forgot to say, "Hey, how was your day today?" But to them, that might be like catastrophically. Then they're going to exaggerate it. You never care, and you never
Right.
do these efforts, and then they then wait to get you back, and they kind of like collect these things, almost like a pile of crappy ways to get you back, and then they make sure to offload it right when it matters the most. And the thing is, most of the time, most of us have no clue any of this is happening on the back end. I didn't, certainly didn't. Talking about this is really hard. Are you finding it hard to talk about?
It's honestly, it just reminds me a lot of pain.
Mm,
You talked earlier about that you've sort of reclaimed some holidays and stuff for yourself. That's something that I absolutely had to do when I became an adult, just to start reclaim birthdays for myself. I remember the first birthday that I had, without any connection or contact with my parents. I set it up. I invited my friends to a restaurant I wanted to go to, and that was an act of reclaiming birthdays because I had felt that I'd never been able or allowed to have like a birthday the way that I wanted to. But then I saw that taken away again when I got into that relationship with my narcissistic ex, that again, I was spending all of this time lavishing these wonderful celebrations on him, and I never got the same in response.
and then
And
you didn't get it growing up either, so you like
no, and so it was just another redo, and I had a conversation with my husband last year. My husband he loves to he gets nervous or anxious about not doing what I might want, which can mean that he may overly want my input because he wants to give me exactly what I want because he knows that I haven't gotten in the past. But then I ended up just like crying. Like last birthday, I ended up crying and I'm like, just plan it. I just want someone else to plan it. Like I promise that I will like it.
mm.
Like, but he needed that permission. And it didn't come from this place of that he doesn't care. It came from this place of he was over caring and overthinking about it and over worrying and wanting to give me exactly what I wanted. When really what it comes down to is I took care of my mom, I took care of my ex, and I did it all for them without them having to even ask. And I always wanted that in return, that's the codependent aspect of me, is that I was doing these things expecting the same in return. And with my own husband today and having a different kind of relationship is I now know how to communicate that with a partner who's willing and able to do that kind of stuff, that he'll hear that and be like, oh, okay, I'll go do that, and that's the big difference.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's still hard, especially my sort of codependent personality, or my default is still codependent. I go into that place of, I'm going to model what I want, and then get really angry and resentful because you're not giving me what I want, even though I've never communicated it to you that I want that, you know? And that's
But there
my work.
but there was good reasons why you didn't communicate it. Because what would happen if you'd communicated it to either parties, either narcissistic parties?
That's really funny that you bring that up. It reminds me, when I turned 17, I gave my parents a list of birthday gifts that I wanted. And it was very specific. I'm a weird adult. I was a weird kid. Like, I wanted this apricot pancake syrup from Perkins. Like it wasn't expensive things, really. And the main thing I said on my birthday list is that I did not want any clothes.
Let me
And
guess.
guess what I got for my birthday?
Yeah, lots of clothes.
I got lots of clothes. And I looked like the bad one or the crazy one when I then, like, lost my fucking mind. I'm a teenager. I've literally given you a blueprint to follow, and
Mhm.
you just purposely choose not to follow it. But
Mhm.
then you're gonna villainize me and make me out to be the bad guy because I've asked you for what I wanted, and then you don't give it to me. And then you gaslight me around it of like, well, you needed new clothes and you blah, blah, blah. And your list, you don't know what's best for you. Those are some things I
Mm.
absolutely heard. I
Lovely.
know what's best for you. And then if I lose my mind around that, I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
bad guy.
It's reminding me, this is now I'm realizing I know that there was a dynamic behind it that was really another thing that was going on. That was my grandmother, my dad's mom, would go out of the way to make each of her grandkids have an amazing day. She'd pick us up, take us somewhere, or take us home, and then make sure to make our most favorite things. Let us just eat to our heart's content. We could be little piggies that day. Yes, we'd come home really messy with messy faces and messy clothes, but I felt special. Like
Mhm.
it was like somebody had taken me to the fair that day. That's how it felt. But I know that in the background, it was her way of really being crappy to my mom, because she
Mhm.
would outshow my mom, and then she'd also then return us in messy clothes that my mom then had to launder, and maybe even some of them might not be savable because the things that we'd gotten into, like chocolate, was impossible to move from a white shirt, and it would
Mhm.
be permanently ruined. So it was really a way to stick it to my mom. But I did, if I ignored that part, the context of it, and when you're really little, you don't always understand all of that. I just knew it was super, super special day. So I had days like that, and maybe that's helped me today. And isn't that sad to take something that was really a bad dynamic between my mother and mother-in-law? But I think that's helped me to be able to learn how to kind of show up for myself, because yeah, I can get into that same model, and I'll model and be really good for your birthday. But raising 3 boys have helped break a lot of things for me, because they're like, "No, mom, I don't want that." And then they'll tell me what they want. And then if I miss it, and they're like, and then I'm not right mind reading you. I'm not going to do that for you. So then I just have to like, what, and they'll say, "What is it that you want?" And then I tell them, "This is what I want." And then they show up that way. So it's kind of helped me kind of learn new habits around some of this.
Yeah.
But it does, it's interesting because I said it was hard to talk about this. It's hard for me to talk about this because there is a part of me deep, deep inside that wishes that there was a days those days happened in a perfect way. That I do kind of have this idealized wish for this something, but I just kind of
Mhm.
know that it won't be this way here. Since I have a religious belief, I like, well, maybe someday it will be in heaven, it will be like this, but I've kind of given up on the idea of this perfect experience. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I find ways to sort of make things special myself. Like I tend to like go out into nature and notice the gorgeous beauty of around a holiday and kind of soak that in and see that as the universe gift to me. I do things like that that kind of help fill in for this, but it's a hard spot. This is a really a painful spot, and I have a feeling it's pretty universal for a lot of us.
Yeah. I Growing up with a narcissistic parent who used to always ruin birthdays and things like that, I I have never liked much attention on myself. And that always sort of connected to my self-esteem too, of not feeling like I deserved that kind of recognition or attention or anything. I remember when I graduated college, which was actually a very big deal. I did not get clean from drugs until I was 23, so I was actively using the entire time I was in college. I also had almost dropped out to go be with this other narcissist. I was going to get engaged. I was going to help raise his kid. He was 9 years older and a drug dealer. That was a good choice. So I'd made a lot of bad choices and somehow still had graduated college by the time I was 23. And I'd graduated with honors. I'd graduated cum laude. And at my college graduation party, my mother said that she had given me this necklace. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was like a little owl necklace or something. She'd given me a necklace, and she said that I had graduated cum laude because she'd given me that necklace. And I remember being baffled that she said that. And she said it in front of multiple people. Like there were multiple people there that all witnessed that and heard her say that I had graduated from college with honors despite a drug addiction, despite transferring and nearly dropping out, despite all of these things and being raised by her, who was particularly awful and had physically assaulted me also while I was in college. I had graduated with honors despite all of that, not because she'd given me a necklace. But again, it's that sense of entitlement or just feeling like she's responsible for she's responsible for the gifts that I do or the successes that I have because somehow she's a part of them. And I think at least for my mother, she really felt like I was an extension of her, that I was me, myself, and the things that I did reflected on her and good or bad, they were somehow connected to her.
Yeah. 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 So it's important, I think, I'm thinking about how we kind of wrap up this topic is that to I've found it helpful to grieve what's been lost or what is missing. And then I've also found it really, really helpful not to move into the direction of becoming resentful
Mm.
and envious of others, but rather to ask myself, what is it that I can do to augment, to step in, to fill in for the whole, to realize that I'm my first person in my life to love myself and that I need to show up for myself. Yeah, it's nice when others do it, but it doesn't have to depend on others doing it.
Right.
And that's how I've kind of like tried to heal this in myself.
And I think too, it's good to just reclaim holidays,
Mm.
to make the choices that you want to make, to spend the time with the people that you want to spend time with and celebrate the way that you want to celebrate them. One of the best Thanksgivings I ever had was just by myself and some friends having like a Friendsgiving. I wasn't with
Mm.
family. I wasn't with anybody that I didn't enjoy spending time with. I made a choice, an active, conscious decision to be around and do things that I enjoyed with people I enjoyed. Today's self-help tip is to implement self-care boundaries when it comes to dealing with holidays, anniversaries, celebrations that you know are going to involve your narcissist. For example, at a time in my life when I was implementing really strict and firm boundaries with my narcissistic mother, I would limit the amount of time I would spend at areas where she was going to be. And I would make sure to take my own vehicle, for example. So I would only spend a maximum of 2 hours, and that was it. And what helped me too is having sort of bookends. So things I did right before I would attend and things I had planned to do right after, or things I would say I was going to do right after. For example, I remember one Thanksgiving I said I was going to go visit my in-laws right after I left Thanksgiving with them, just to give me an excuse to leave the house at that exact time. I had 2 hours and 2 hours, and that's it. And also taking my own vehicle to make sure that I was able to take myself out of the situation, but being able to limit those specific interactions, times with that person. What self-care boundaries would you do, Kerry?
I do similar things. I have a lot of the same plan is that I would also bookend. I would plan activities one after another so that I would have a reason to leave, not just that I was leaving because I wanted to, because that's hard to explain. So it gave me a great excuse. I love that. I also asked myself up ahead, what is it I wanted to have happen that day? And then make sure that I made time for that and tried to fit it in some way. Like maybe I might go to an event and I really want a certain kind of food. Instead of hoping someone would make it and have it be there, I would make it and bring it. I would
Mhm.
kind of figure out how I could meet my own needs in the context of the situation that I was facing
I
and
like
then
that.
try to show up for that. Yeah, it helps a lot for me. Then I'm not so dependent on other people and I'm less disappointed because I know that I showed up.
Yeah.
But I love your ideas are great. And I do agree. Taking your own car, that's
Whew,
huge. I
yeah.
mean, huge.
Having an exit plan is so necessary
Mhm.
when you're dealing with somebody who's unpredictable or may make your life miserable
Mhm.
or, yeah, find
You
a
know,
way to
just
leave.
it reminded me of another thing is that if you know something's going to be said that's hurtful or unkind, it gets always said at these events. Plan a statement that you plan to make. Practice a statement that you're going to make when that happens. Like, maybe even write it down, maybe even write it down and practice saying it over and over before you get there so that when that statement gets said, you already have it and you're ready to go with it. That's another thing I found really helpful too.
Yeah, that's a good my mother would always make comments about my eating, as I imagine you've had people and
Yes.
I mean, I feel like it's a common experience for women, unfortunately. Someone's going to comment on our eating or our
Yeah.
dieting or lack of dieting or whatever, and
Like,
my
do you
mother
need that
would
second pie? Really?
right, my mother would often comment on my eating,
Yeah.
and, I'd gotten to a place where I would be very reactive, I'd be like, "Don't fucking talk about my eating." Like, I'd go to the other side of it,
Right.
but that's not the kind of person I wanted to be either, So, I learned to just not respond because then if she's not getting anything out of it, she's gonna eventually stop, which she did. Or I would just say, "I'm not gonna talk about that. Thanks,"
Yep.
and just move to something else, you
I
know?
also found if you roll with it, it helps too. You're like, yep, I am. And then walk away.
Mhm. I like that too. I'm gonna enjoy every bite of the
That's
second
right.
pie.
It's gonna be really wonderful. Yeah, exactly. I love this. It's really helpful to do this. I think that's a great way just to sort of avoid the setup for failure. Really, really
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah. We gotta be set up for success when we're dealing with people who wanna tear us down.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you for joining us today. Have a question or comment? Email us at hello@breakingfreewithkerryandtara.com. If this episode's been helpful, consider becoming a supporter. And if you haven't yet, make sure to follow us at Breaking Free from Narc Abuse on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We'll see you back here next time.